Hi, I am Penny Belgarde, and I am covering reasoning, the instructional model concept attainment, and my lesson is on interpersonal skills in social networking sites with a focus on the workplace. And obviously overall this can be used outside of the workplace as well, but our focus for this lesson is work related. And my summary of concept attainment is an inductive approach to help students critically think about the meaning of a particular concept. It creates an environment where the teacher has frequent access to student knowledge, where teachers visibly see the ways in which students are thinking through ideas, and where the natural interests and cognitive styles of culturally diverse students are the incentive for student involvement, and where the teacher decides which concepts are significant to warrant in-depth attention and analysis. The purpose of the concept attainment model is for students to construct and justify an answer to questions that make personal sense. It is grounded on how students view the world and construct ideas, or is learning that focuses on seeing the whole through the parts. The purpose is also to enhance motivation because students are required to search for ideas that make conceptual sense to them, and they personally invest themselves in the ideas. And the topic or subject of my lesson is using interpersonal skills for social networking, and like I said before, it's focused on in the workplace but can be used anywhere, everywhere. The age group is adults or college students, which the age range is 18 years and above. The standards included in this model, this lesson model, is the first one: students will use interpersonal skills to effectively interact with large numbers of people as well as groups. Students will improve their social and emotional competencies with an emphasis on social and emotional skills and appropriate social interactions. And students will understand the concepts of the lesson and display critical thinking skills. The learning objectives in this lesson model is the first one: students will be able to describe interpersonal skills related to social networking in the workplace. Students will be able to identify examples of positive and negative ways to display interpersonal skills in social networking sites. Students will be able to communicate and identify their ideas and thoughts with a group of students using on how to use interpersonal skills in social networking in the workplace. And the last one: students will describe how to use positive interpersonal skills in social networking in the workplace is essential to workplace success. Which is essential to workplace success. So the rationale for this model is because of how social networking has transformed how we communicate with each other individually or as a group. Interpersonal skills are important in interacting with each other through social networking, especially when it is job related. And when students do not have a concrete understanding of the effects of using negative interpersonal skills, it can affect their job, position, relationships with others, social surroundings, and much more. I chose the reasoning teaching models with a focus on concept attainment. And using this, I will be able to show the positive and negative examples of our lesson topic, where students will be able to identify a concept and determine the concept's essential attributes. And students will also be able to compare and contrast the negative and the positives as well. So the materials needed for this lesson is the textbook for their reading, which covers, it's about a two pages of content that they need to read to cover this section, and then a whiteboard or a chalkboard or whiteboard, whatever you have access to, and then of course a writing instrument. The setup is, after students have read the section in their textbooks, students will divide into two groups. Teacher will draw a T on the whiteboard, one side for the positive, the other side for the negative. The teacher will explain that each person in each group will be the leader within the group for each positive, negative they cover. And this is so everybody has an opportunity to be a leader and a reporter. And so nobody will be left out. Nobody will not have that opportunity. And the teacher will then write the first negative or positive on the board and ask the first group to discuss amongst themselves the details of the positive or negative. So they're going to be able to explain it to the class, why it's negative or why it's a positive. So that's what they're going to work on in their group setting. They will then report back to the class the details of what they discussed, most likely going to be their reporter. And the teacher will then use their report to establish brief discussion and reflection amongst the entire class. Next, I'm going to cover the phases, and the first phase is concept identification. And during this phase, concepts taught using this model should be significant and have clear and specific attributes. The students should be able to identify the essential attributes by thinking about the exemplars the teacher provides, and the students will become active participants in the knowledge construction of the lesson. Once the teacher identifies the concepts, students can then participate in the concept attainment instructional model. So next, in my lesson for concept identification, the teacher will give directions and objectives of the lesson. Students will first read 2 pages of their text that cover the lesson topic. Once those students have finished reading and the class divides into 2 groups, the teacher then explains the concept of the activity and that they will be looking for the specific attributes of the topic. Students will become active participants by assigning a leader for each turn and a reporter for each turn to ensure all students have an opportunity to use communication and interact with their group. It will be expected that all students participate and that they all use critical thinking skills and their knowledge and experiences to help facilitate the group discussion. Once the group reports their details on a positive or negative to the entire class, this will turn into a brief discussion for an opportunity for students to use their knowledge and reflection on the attribute. So how do we relate this to mind and brain that relates to this model lesson? Students will use their cognitive skills to develop better concept understandings and retain the concepts longer with this teaching approach through visual and auditory. They will use these perceptual modalities for help with learning these concepts. And students will use Gardner's multiple intelligence, and they would be the spatial, linguistic, and interpersonal. And this will also be an advantage for the approach to diversity within the group as well. Phase 2 is hypothesizing. And the purpose of hypothesizing is to foster thinking and to learn the teacher-defined concept. The thinking process is important as as important as the correct identification of the concept and requiring students to defend their hypothesis. And there is a cyclical process in this phase, and it is as follows. And I don't have this in my PowerPoint, but I'm just going to list them. And the first one is teacher presents the exemplars. Number 2, students analyze exemplars to generate hypotheses and defend responses. Number 3, teacher presents additional exemplars. Number 4, students add additional hypotheses and eliminate invalid hypotheses. And number 5, teacher and students confirm all valid hypotheses and eliminate all invalid hypotheses. So using these 5 steps, I went ahead and I put my lesson into this 5-step sorry, I'm having a hard time pronouncing this, cyclical process. And my first one is teacher presents a positive and negative one at a time on the board under the T that we've written on the board. Number 2, students analyze and discuss within their group the details of the positive or negative. They then report back to class their response. Then their response will develop into brief reflective class discussion. Number 3, teacher then presents the negative or the positive. Number 4, students repeat step number 2. And number 5, teacher and students confirm all valid hypotheses and eliminate invalid hypotheses as a class. So, By using this process and looking at the brain and mind, students are articulating their reasoning, which helps them develop their thinking. Students also benefit from hearing other students' reasoning described in their words. This process will also assist in helping students with cognitive, emotional, and social development. And this is a good opportunity to include assessment, and during this phase, I'm able to use a formative assessment, which I can determine how students are progressing, meeting the standards and learning objectives of the lesson. And I can do this by observing each group during their reflection discussion time. I will observe students individually as well. I will watch that students are interacting well with one another, they are sharing their ideas or experiences, and that they are showing their understanding of the objectives through their communication and interaction with their group in class discussion. Phase 3 is closure. So this closure phase allows teachers to review the hypotheses that remain after all the exemplars have been presented, and helps the students isolate a working concept name. The teacher reviews and demonstrates why the concept attributes define whether an item is a positive exemplar or a negative. And if students can't identify the correct concept name, the teacher should provide it. And the reinforcement of having students recognize why each exemplar is either positive or negative is extremely important in fostering enhanced student understanding. So this reinforcement enables students to proceed more easily to the application phase of the model. And also, during my closure phase for my lesson, and after all the positives and negatives have been introduced, addressed, and presented, we will work on a concept name. So as the teacher, I will review and demonstrate why the concept attributes is either a positive or a negative. I will check for understanding and further explain if needed to ensure students are ready to proceed to the next step or the next level. So when it comes to the mind and brain, this phase encourages critical thinking and involves the teacher giving students another opportunity to reinforce the concepts. The concept is to ensure students are using their critical thinking skills to figure out the reasoning of the positive and negatives. This phase will help them with cognitive and social development. And this is also another opportunity for some assessment, and we can use formative assessment on individual students and how I saw them interacting, participating, and contributing to the group activity. And then we come to phase 4, the application phase. And this phase enables students to explore fully their understanding of the concept. Students demonstrate an understanding of the concept by creating their own exemplars. This process allows the teachers to explore the ability of students to define the concept's essential attributes. And in my lesson, students are in the application phase when each group presents their detailed reasoning for each positive and negative to the entire class. So when it comes to brain and mind in this phase, students use their cognitive skills to develop better concept understandings and retain the concepts longer with this teaching approach through visual and auditory. And students also will use Gardner's multiple intelligence, which are spatial, linguistic, and interpersonal, and students at all levels have the opportunity to share their knowledge and experiences, therefore contributing according to their cognitive ability or level. I learned that this model fosters reasoning skills and provides students opportunities to acquire concepts from various disciplines and the skills involved in critical thinking and problem solving. It also allows students to use or defend their ideas or experiences, and using this model also helps students gather a better understanding of the concept that they will be able to retain. So in ending, the teaching model was effective in this lesson for students. It provided me the opportunity to put together a lesson that was well structured, understandable, and simple to explain to students. Students were excited to learn about the topic because it involved social networking, so it was a motivator moving into the activity. The groups went fine and definitely needed to assign leader and reporter for each group to help ensure students were communicating and interacting with each other. And it also allowed for everyone to give their input, ideas, or reflection. And once each group reported out to the class, it prompted brief discussion on the positive or negative, which helped reinforce what they were learning. And I believe that this helped with retaining the concept learned. And my references, and that is the end. Thank you very much.